Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. We are here on a special day and time. It is as I record for me and my time. It's Saturday, February 1st at 1 p.m. So a midday special. We have a really good one here. I've been wanting to have this fellow on for quite some time. As you know by the thumbnail, is Alex Fox. Excuse me, the developer of the Mood camera app. And I've been having a lot of fun with this app, and we're going to talk to Alex all about, the app and whatnot. But first, let's bring in one of my co-hosts, Mr. Dwight Broman. Hey, Dwight.
Hey, Greg. How you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. It's not snowing, so there's that.
Nice.
But so Dave is not able to join us. He ran a 5K run today, and I imagine he's probably a little wore out.
That's all
from that, and
he's only running a 5K.
Yeah, it was just a 5K, but I would imagine it's probably sub-zero temperatures. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the weather is for him in Pittsburgh, but if it was me running a 5K, I got to tell you, I'd need about 3 days. I don't. I'm just not a runner, but God bless him for doing it, because it's just not something I could do. But,
I only run to the refrigerator and I run to the refrigerator and from the police. So that's it.
Yeah, that's about it. So, all right. Well, without any further ado, let's welcome to the show Alex Fox. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Hey, Alex, welcome.
Good. And you are in London, in the UK.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it is 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock
for you in the evening.
Yeah.
Still daylight though, is it?
No. We just saw the last of the kind of the deep blue kind of sunset. But yeah,
oh yeah,
it's just dark
sunset.
Now.
What's that? I haven't seen a sunset in so long this time of year. But so Mood camera. I'm really looking forward to hearing all about this. But first, let's give just a very brief rundown of who you are and how you got into all this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the developer of Mood camera. If that wasn't already obvious, yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of mobile photography for a long time. I think my first real camera phone was a Samsung S3. So I don't know how old that is now, but pretty ancient. But yeah, I mean, I've owned quite a few kind of Android and iPhone phones. So there was a phone called the OnePlus One, which was like a super cheap Android phone that had a really kind of interesting camera. It had like a kind of one of the first like manual modes. That was kind of interesting. Also, like I've owned some of the Pixel phones. LG G4 was another one, and I've owned a bunch of iPhones as well. More recently, as I kind of switched to the dark side or the light side. I don't know which one's which. And I think like I always think about like why do I like iPhone photography so much? Like, what is it about it? Because I've bought a Fujifilm like camera, and it doesn't get much time out the house, I'm afraid to say. And I think what it is, it's just something about having it with you all the time, and something about like cheating, bending the rules, being able to like make really awesome photos with a phone. Sort of felt like you're trying to outdo physics in a way, or match a DSLR or something, and that was definitely something that was quite exciting in the early days for sure. And it just kind of felt fun, really. I'm sure you guys kind of know what I mean. I don't know, you just get out and snap a few photos, and there's no like drawn out process of copying the raws over to your computer and editing.
Like I I interviewed Rick Salmon on the show at one time, and I mean he was a Canon photographer. He was a member of the what was it called? There was a select group of Canon photographers that had a title. They were kind of like the elite Canon photographers, and he started shooting with his iPhone a lot, and So he just went on a trip to Morocco where he just took his iPhone. And when he got back, that's when I did the interview with him. And one of the things I asked him is, why are a lot of you guys, like you big professionals, turning to the iPhone? And he said, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that really drew him to it. And, and now, Scott Calby's got this, there's iPhone stuff going on with his organization and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it definitely is fun. And when guys like yourself come up with an app like Mood Camera, that makes it even more fun. It just, there's Mood, but then there's other ones. There's so many different, there's such a variety.
It's amazing.
Right?
Yeah. We're so lucky really to have so much choice. And I think, that being said, I do feel like mobile photography is in a kind of weird spot in a way, because if you think about like 95% of iPhone or smartphone users, maybe even more than 95%, like I kind of think that the camera is I think of it as like an extension of their memory, right? Like most people just take a snap of what they're doing to remember it later. Kind of like I was kind of think it's like another example of like what it is to be a cyborg. You take all these photos, you have all these memories, and then they go into the cloud, and then in the future you can kind of search for them and look at them again, and it's kind of like enhancing your memory in a weird way. So obviously that's what most people are doing with their phone, and then there's people like us who are taking creating art. We want to be creative with it, and I think obviously Apple has to kind of like cater to the masses really, but then they're also pushing higher megapixels, higher dynamic range, and just trying to balance both the pros and the kind of people who just don't really care. They just want to take a nice photo. And I think I think it does suffer a bit for us, just because it means that over the past 5 years, the processing has just got heavier and heavier. Straight out of the default camera, everything's the dynamic range is crazy, and colors are super punchy and, super sharp. And I don't know why they've pushed it so far in that direction. I think probably if you did a blind test with an average iPhone user, they'd prefer the punchier one, and that's probably why it's kind of down to that.
Yeah. I've always maintained there's the 90-90 rule. They want to please 90% of the people 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But Dwight's got me going in a different direction. I did some of this before, but in shooting RAW, right, Dwight? It's just because of that over-processed look is not as appealing anymore.
Yeah. I'm a little different,
and we're gonna get into Mood here shortly, but we'll just touch on this point and then we'll get back in.
I'm a little different than most photographers. I didn't start until I started using an iPhone, back in the COVID days, and I didn't know anything about photography, and I went on to an online school. I think this was probably 6-7 years ago. And I think, Alex, you're right. I think back then we could turn off that processing back then, and then then an iOS update came, and that option wasn't available. And when I was learning, I didn't really know too much. I thought it was just the iPhone camera, and that worked fine, while I was learning. But as time went on, and I started getting doing more editing on the big screen, I started noticing the effect of that over processing, and it drove me crazy. So that kind of pushed me into shooting RAW, into film emulation apps, and so thank you for doing that. I mean, this really can take care of all of that stuff, really. So I'm really excited about this app, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And this is a challenge, and I don't think Apple, hey, if they just put that switch back in there, I'd be so happy. But I'm afraid they're going to cater to the masses for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said about when you put it on the big screen, because I had the same experience where I was kind of looking at my phone. I was like, oh, this is pretty nice. And I was actually thinking of setting up a little portfolio site of some of my pics I'd taken with my iPhone. And then when I put on my on a 4K big screen, I was like, whoa, this looks kind of bad. So I suppose they tune it for the phone, because that's, again, going to be 90% of where people look at the images.
Yeah. I think it goes from phone to Instagram, for the most part. But maybe guys like us, we're going to look at the bigger picture. And if you look at the details, they become smudgy. I mean, it's gross. There's detail and noise, and if you take that noise out, it looks if you zoom in, it looks like somebody just smudged the side of a cliff as opposed to having the details. So that's why I prefer to shoot in RAW.
I would also say that I think one reason that we can shoot in RAW now is that the sensors have got that much better, because I think I think when I got the iPhone 11, and that was when they had the, I think that was the debut of the night mode, where it took, you could hold it and do a kind of fake long exposure. And I remember kind of being amazed by that, and then kind of quickly realized it looks kind of weird. But now the sensors are way more light sensitive, so you actually don't really need. You don't need Pro RAW or the Apple pipeline quite as much as you did probably back then, when the RAWs would have been a bit worse. Yeah. The kind of the straight RAWs would have been struggling in kind of medium light situations.
Yeah, I would agree 100%.
Just got to let my dog out. But okay, so let's get back to the mood camera now, because we've just talked about something that you've kind of done with mood camera, and that is you've been able to strip out some of the over processing look.
Yeah.
I was really I've played around with the app, but I played around with it a fair bit this morning, and I've discovered a few things that I didn't really know were there. There's a lot in this app, and one of the things is the, there's the dynamic range setting.
Yeah.
You can adjust the dynamic range. And if you take I have to open the app here now just to have a look at it. But if you take the dynamic range and set it to 0.
Yeah.
That's basically like a raw file, except you're getting a JPEG.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was that it is. I mean, it took me like a while to work out all the settings that you could control. So I don't know. So the app will capture in Pro RAW if the device supports it. So I think the Pro phones since the 12, I think, support Pro
12,
RAW.
Yeah.
So it will capture in Pro RAW, and then I basically. There's a pipeline of operations, different image filters and stuff. But there is, at the beginning of that chain of filters, there is some configuration you can do with the Pro RAW and say, so I'm turning like noise reduction, I think, down, and I'm turning sharpness down. And one of the things is you can control it's called like the local tone curve or something. It's the kind of
local tone mapping.
Yeah, and you can basically, if you set it to 0, you don't get that kind of HDR effect. And I'm not sure, exactly what's going on behind the scenes, because Apple isn't super forthcoming when it comes to their documentation on this kind of stuff. So it did take a lot of trial and error to kind of work it all out. But I'm pleased with the results for sure. I just wish they would just give a bit more flexibility with the non-Pro phones, because I can't do I can't really offer the dynamic range option on those, because they can't capture Pro RAW, and the JPEGs you get out of the camera are just baked in.
Yeah.
It took me a while to kind of figure out that dynamic range one. I think I had it all the way off, and I couldn't figure out why my photos were so dark. I think you've got to get to at least low or medium, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, some people love the zero setting, even though it's like less. You get more misses, should we say? Do you know what I mean?
Sure,
like,
sure.
And it's a lot more contrasty. But
Yeah.
I think that's dependent on the scene
Yep.
you're taking a picture of, right? There's a place for that.
Yeah.
So and I think that goes with all the the whole range in the dynamic range settings. You can go full blown dynamic range, which is really, if you've got a lot of dark and a whole lot of light, I would use that just to kind of balance it all out. But if you're after a high contrast shot, then by all means go to the zero. It's and with the zero, you're going to get some grain, right? And then, like Dwight says, there's detail and grain. So,
well, actually, the grain is there's no grain in the Pro Raw that comes up. Well,
it's
none. But
noise, I guess, right?
no, but it's the Pro Raw that it captures is the same. Turning off the tone mapping doesn't. It still keeps the noise reduction that you get from the Pro Raw.
Oh, okay.
So the grain is. I'm adding grain back in.
You're adding the layer back on top of the
which
Pro
is
Raw.
kind of yeah. Which is kind of
results. I can show them if you ask again.
It's kind of ironic that we
Leave
have
it to Siri to spoil the party.
I was going to say, it's ironic, obviously, that we have this Pro Raw that is removing all this noise, and I'm adding it back in. But
Yeah.
I'm doing it for a reason.
Yeah. So, how did you come up with the idea of Mood? Like, I guess you said you had a Fujifilm camera.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you probably used some of the film sim stuff in that.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what led you to come up with this idea?
Well, I think I can't remember. I think I had an iPhone 11 Pro, and that was fun. And then I think I just thought, hey, I should get a proper camera because I'm obviously into this photography thing. And like I said, I got an XT30, which is like one of the more budget options. Great little camera, but I just never had it with me, and I couldn't be bothered to edit the photos. I don't know. It just wasn't really working for me. So then, I went back to to iPhone photography. But I think I was just kind of getting bored of it. I think, to be honest, I think the processing look wasn't doing it. The processed look wasn't doing it for me, and like with anything, you kind of get over it. I was kind of done with doing lots of editing. It kind of was starting to weigh on me. Take a load of photos and then I'd be having to sit on my phone and kind of in Snapseed and edit them. I think I just was lacking inspiration. So I basically from that was like, okay, there's a load of apps out there. Let's explore some. So probably for a year. I was trying out some different apps that, I hoped would inspire me. And I guess they did. But none of them were never quite what I wanted. I think they're either too gimmicky, very much I think there's one called Nomo or something. And it has really interesting cameras in it, but they're all quite gimmicky. Or you get the ones that are way too lots of editing, lots of options, kind of more pro. And I suppose I wanted something in the middle, and nothing quite worked for me. And I suppose I eventually thought, hey, maybe I'll give it a go. I've been a developer for over 20 years now. So I had the skills. I've done a lot of building apps, lots of user experience stuff. So I thought, let's just have a little go. So it was a kind of a problem I had, which is quite nice because you build it for yourself instead of needing customers to tell you what they want, kind of thing. So it makes it
it's nice when you can solve your own problem.
Yeah, exactly.
You pick kind of a midpoint, between maybe Visco and like you said, Nomo. I think there's a few other ones out there.
Yeah,
and I now that I'm talking to you, I can kind of see that niche now. So, I think that's great.
Yeah, it was also it took me a while to understand what I liked about or what I didn't like about the kind of stock look, and what I liked about these other apps. And I suppose, like, obviously, yeah, let's get rid of the HDR over sharpened effects. I think there is another Nomo app called Nomo Raw, which does a similar thing.
Yeah, it's a camera.
Yeah, and I thought that's pretty cool. The other thing was, like, I was sort of trying to understand why I liked film grain so much. You know, it kind of took a while just to kind of, like, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you know, film is just nostalgia. But I don't think it is that. There's just something in grain that just, like, gives it a sense of physicality somehow, even though it's obviously digital and it's on your phone. It gives it, I don't know, a sense of realism or something. And it helps to, like, obscure some of the, like, detail, which I know to some photographers is the worst thing you want. You want as much detail as possible. But I think there's something in the kind of about being able to, the human mind will make up the detail, and that's kind of a nice thing, I think.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something there, Alex. There's some psychological aspect of it that I haven't been able to put my finger on, and that's neat right there. What's really interesting for me is that I'm really into editing. So, you know, I like taking a raw file, and I've got, you know, my workflow on Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop. And then when I was getting ready for this podcast, I went out and took some shots at the local mission, and I brought them in on my desktop, and I got everything downloaded, and I looked, you know, for my favorite 3, and I'm like, these aren't supposed to be edited. And it was ready to go. And I just did a little bit of cropping, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's something else. Like, yeah, I sort of kind of appreciated this after I'd built it. But, you know, one of the reasons there's no editing is because, like, I would find I'd, like, almost have an anxiety about editing, because there'd be, like, so many options that you could, like, never settle on, like, the best thing. So there was something nice about it's almost like I don't want to use the word, it's kind of overused, but it's kind of like mindful in as much as you just, like, have to take it for what it is, how it comes out, and you don't have an opportunity to change it. And obviously you get some misses, but you also get some really nice, happy accidents, which you just wouldn't normally get with the kind of editing flow. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't edit, and it's, you know, it's a different style of creativity, I guess. And yeah, I think just being able to snap and not worry about it was just super nice. And I think it meant that, like, I had to make sure that the emulations and the grain and everything was really good. Like, it couldn't look bad, you know. So that meant that, like, I spent a lot of time balancing each emulation for, like, with lots of different scenarios to make sure that it didn't look kind of crazy. Because obviously it kind of, they had to be all rounders within some degree. So yeah, it's interesting that, like, that decision made me basically, like, force me to fine tune the flow of the creative.
Yeah,
the flow.
And it seems that you've been able to take advantage of the API by incorporating even portrait mode into the app. So let's have a look at this one here. You know, tell us about this a little bit, and then, you know, was it difficult to get portrait mode built into it, or is that, like, just basically a toggle in the in Xcode, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was a toggle. Yeah, I had quite a couple of stressful months trying to work it out. I think, yeah, I mean, it is hard, because I think one of the things is, what I wanted to do was with the data was sort of outside what the kind of typical app might do, because essentially there's 2 steps to it. One is, like, capturing the data itself, and that is sort of just a switch, basically. So if you're building an app that didn't have, you know, much filtering, you could just save that data with the file, and then when you open it in the Photos app, it would render the portrait mode for you. Whereas I wanted to apply the portrait mode kind of blur before the filmic effects and like bake it all in. So I basically had to like, I had to use that depth map and then work out like the right way to render it. And there is a filter that they provide that you can use with the depth data. So you get this like black and white depth map basically. But it was really challenging to again, there wasn't much documentation on it, and it was really challenging to just get looking right. And like, it didn't do the foreground rendering, blurring either. So I had to do a thing where like I inverted the depth map and then run it through again to get the foreground blurring working as well. And it was a lot of experimentation. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the picture you got here is one of the early tests. I was just one of my photos just out and about. And yeah, I think this one came out really nicely. I think what the advantage of doing the portrait mode blur and then the grain is that it just homogenizes it a bit. I think like it obscures some of those janky kind of cutouts you can get with portrait mode, and it just kind of helps it blend it all into kind of what feels like more of a finished image. So yeah, that was really exciting. And like, I was sort of, I was in two minds of whether I should put it in, because I know it's more processing, it's more computational photography. And I sort of was against that, but, I can see its uses, and it does produce some really nice images.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad you put it in, because and it does a really good job. Like, now this is where I wonder if the segmentation mask or the segmenting part of it comes in from an app standpoint or from the phone itself, because this did a really good job of, in the middle of the screen, you got your flower, but then in behind you've got these little, stem parts and that, but behind it is blurry. And a lot of times, the portrait mode image comes out where it doesn't blur that part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's done a great job of separating the subject from the background and producing that background blur like that.
Yeah, that's great depth of field. And I'm sitting here looking for the Apple errors on the portrait, and I haven't found one yet.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't either.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not foolproof.
Sure.
Let me tell you.
Well,
but it's
but you can fix it, in post if you have to. But yeah.
No, that's a heck of a good job. I was also interested to hearing how you like the look that you have with this one. It just looks like a 1970s film shot. That's and not even from a like a SLR.
I
guess it would be an
SLR.
SLR. Yeah. Sorry. Like, it doesn't even look like it would be from. It almost looks like something from like a 110 camera. But I like it.
Yeah, I think this was from, I think, the beta days before it was fully released, and I had a group of testers all around the world. And yeah, this was one that I particularly liked. I think, there's not a lot of detail in it for sure, but the colors really pop. And I think there's something about like the not quite being able to see the people's faces. You can kind of
But to me, that lack of detail gives it so much character.
Yeah.
Such a nostalgic look.
I love the softness of it. I really like that.
Yeah, it makes me want to use that, and I don't know which setting it was exactly, but I'm gonna say it looks like gold.
I think it might be analog, but I'm not sure.
Or maybe analog. Okay.
Yeah,
I've gotten some good pictures with analog.
Yeah, it's a very popular one.
Yeah.
But it's funny though. People always like say, "Oh, what settings did you use?" But I think I always sort of say, "Well, I mean, it's not really. it's not just the settings. You got to be in a place like this and have an eye for it, right?
Yeah, I think a couple months ago I was reading the subreddit and I pinged Greg on this app, and I'm like, Greg, here's all the recipes that people are suggesting, and even that it depends on the scene, right? It depends on everything that's going on, but yeah, that's a common question in the subreddit, right? Yeah.
I posted one that we're going to look at later today, and bang, right off the bat, what did you use for this or whatever? So yeah, maybe I should have put that right in the title or whatever. But
I think it's hard. Like when I do, so I do a weekly Instagram post with like pics of the week that I kind of get from various places, and like. I don't have, there's not really any way for me to get all the emulations, but some people do comment and be like, you should be posting all the settings. And I'm like, well, if I could, I would, but it's like, tracking people down and
Oh, getting back to the portrait part of it. What I really like too is, okay, so say I change my f-stop from whatever my default setting is. I think I have it set for a default setting of f8. And if I want to go back to say f1.4 or something like that, I noticed when I'm looking at it in my Photos app and I swipe up to see the data, it shows the f-stop that I actually shot it with, not the f-stop of the camera itself, the physical aperture of the camera. It gives you, and I love this, it gives you the f number that you use to take the photo. That is so cool. I love that. And I don't know if you put that in or that's just...
Yeah, it was a request of one of my users when I was testing it out. So I've since I implemented it, I've not thought about it. So I'm glad that someone's appreciating it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think it's an amazing little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Just awesome.
Yeah, great.
I'm thinking this was taken with portrait mode.
Yeah,
but I love the color, the vibrancy of that color.
Yeah,
and I'm not even going to ask you what you shot it with.
Chrome.
But
I think it's Chrome.
Probably. But I mean,
it was a friend's. He's like a car journalist, so he's always sending me pictures of cool cars. I think it's Tiger. I think it's like probably Tiger 400N or something.
Okay.
But I think it's just a bright red car. I don't think it's that. But yeah, it's a really cool shot. Obviously,
well, I'm a car buff, so I think I was really drawn to it.
Yeah, it's a great composition and just obviously it's a good scene.
I think one of the real nice things about Mood camera is the fact that there's so many different things that you could do with it. Like even when it comes to, just the, you pick a film simulation and then you can change the dynamic range of it. You can adjust how, you can go to like a faded look, or you can take it right up to like a real harsh, contrasty look. And then you've got, basically I'm running through all the different camera settings, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But you've got your exposure value.
Yeah.
And how you can, but what I also like too is that you've implemented into the settings that you can change how that works when you rub your finger, like when you run your finger up and down. It was initially swipe down to take the exposure value up, but I'm used to the other way. So I was able to just toggle a little switch in the settings, and now when I swipe down, the EV value goes down.
Yeah.
Like you've put a lot of thought into this, and I gotta say, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's so versatile.
Yeah.
In all the stuff that it could do. Even the viewfinder, you can have a modern looking viewfinder or kind of like a vintage style viewfinder. I mean, the intricate little details that you put into this app, if I had a hat, I'd take it off.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm like big on UX and like design and animation, so it was nice to like have a project that I could kind of have full control over, because at work, like there's other priorities than a nice animation, right? So it was kind of nice that I could go deep on that. And yeah, I mean, with the settings it's hard. Like I trying to keep it simple, because if there's too many settings, I'm going to go against what I wanted to do, and create this kind of point and shoot simple experience. But that being said, obviously, like people do have preferences, and I think the inverting the exposure and the different viewfinder, both were requests from users in the beta phase. So I listened and implemented those because I didn't feel like they got in the way of the core experience. You could just ignore them, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Well, Greg and I are such iPhone geeks that little things like that get us really excited.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And another thing that really, separates this from other apps. And so I was going to ask you too, what do you think separates this? What sets it apart from other apps? But before I get you to answer that, I'll just say too that I love that you put the guide in there. It explains what all the film sims are meant for, or what the kind of look that they do, and then all the different things that are within the app. You've got basically an instruction booklet built right in, and I think that's awesome. So aside from the obvious, what do you think sets Mood Camera apart from all the other ones?
Yeah.
Like, especially in the film sim world.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I touched on earlier was that kind of niche between the kind of pro complex side and then the more gimmicky side. And I think that is the niche it sits in. I think from what I've seen, a lot of the apps don't do a great job of film emulation, grain emulation. And that's something that I spent quite a lot of time, understanding how it works on a chemical level, actually, just to understand how to implement it digitally. So that was something that I think the grain just looks more realistic and has a bit more character to it. And I think just the simplicity of the interface and the effort that's gone into, like you said, some of the details just makes it just a nicer experience. I mean, one thing that is a bit controversial, that sets it apart, whether you like it or not, is the fact you don't get a live preview of the filter on the viewfinder.
Right.
And
I'm okay with that myself. Personally, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And initially, that was just, when I first built the prototype, I just didn't do it because I was just building a prototype and I just wanted nice photos to come out of it. I didn't really care about the viewfinder, but I found that it was just nice to have a little bit of a surprise, because I've found that on some other apps that do give you the preview, is that I'll be stood there with my phone and I'll be like, oh, that's kind of nice, and then I'll be flipped to the next filter, and you'll be flipping around, and I'm kind of I just wanted to make something you just pull out and you just take the photo, and it does take a bit of getting used to. And like I said earlier, you do get some misses, but I think the fun that you get out of it makes up for that.
Well, yeah, I like the misses, because I do iPhone art and art with my photos as well. And every time I have something that I like, it's a happy miss, right? It's a mistake. And so I think that's part of the fun of shooting and part of the art of it. So yeah, no, I think that's cool.
And there's also the no chimping switch. I think that's pretty cool. I have yet to use it because I'm still one of these, I may be an old coot, but I still like the instant gratification part of seeing the photo after I take it. But Dwight and I were talking about this, I think it was yesterday, about not the lack of preview, but the fact that we kind of want to see what the image was like.
Yeah.
Because if we screwed up, or if we didn't have it, maybe just tried the wrong setting, we want to be able to correct that for the next shot before we walk away, right?
Yeah.
So but I think that's an interesting feature, having the no chimping in there.
I'm not familiar with what that is.
Chimping?
It's like when you, I think it's because you have when you take a photo and you look at it straight away. It's so you look like a kind of chimp, like bent.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, picture 4 or 5 young kids, and they're taking pictures, and the first thing they do is they all gather around and look, and they look at the picture.
Okay.
And that's like a bunch of chimpanzees. If they just happen to find a phone laying on the ground, that's what they would do, right?
Learn something new every day.
I guess that's where it comes from. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think many people turn that saying on, but I suppose it is part of the kind of the ethos, the kind of the direction I'm trying to push it in is taking away control, and that kind of instant gratification, and in exchange you get some happy accidents, you get some more fun and less kind of anxiety. Because I think it's kind of ironic, the more control we have, you have your weather app and you can see all the weather going on, but I think for a lot of people it just makes you feel less in control because you can kind of see more information. And I suppose sort of trying to take that paradigm and in the photography world, it's having less control. It does free you from some stuff and allow you to just take photos, basically, which I think is quite refreshing.
Yeah,
I like the in your photo library when you go in there. I like how your settings are highlighted as well. I think at the top, so you don't forget that. I'm trying to get used to all the different, what each film emulation does. So I'm shooting in random at times. So it's nice if I get a happy accident to kind of look at, what that setting was. And I haven't found out yet, can you save presets yet, or is that on the roadmap?
How do you mean save them?
Well, let's say if I like this film emulation, at this speed, and if I look at a photo that I took and I want to maybe have that same setting again, instead of just having to remember it or write it down, maybe there's a preset I can save.
I guess you could load, because right now there's each emulation there's only one instance of it. I guess you could say allow loading of the emulation from a photo, if that makes sense, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have something on the roadmap that probably would, which is in that kind of area, but we're it's kind of in testing at the moment.
I was gonna see, if there was anything you could tell us about what might be coming up. I mean, it's kind of a.
You'd have to come after you.
Hard. Pardon?
You'd have to come after you if he told you.
Yeah. So that's it's not something that you probably want to talk about too much, but I do like the fact that you've got a roadmap and there's ideas, your mind's going on it. But what I also like is the community. The community aspect of the app. You've got a subreddit. The app has its own Instagram account and all that stuff. And there's, a lot of interaction between users, and I think that's a good thing. You can't go wrong with. I think I've always said that the mobile photography community is one of the best there is.
Yeah,
you might get your battles, I guess you can call it, between Apple and Android users, but for the most part, it's a really good group of people, and I don't very often, hardly ever do I ever see anybody trash talk somebody else's photo. So I'm glad. It's nice to see that you have a mobile community for the app. So I'm just going to jump to this. Is there any plan on the roadmap to introduce Bay or RAW file option? Norman wants to know.
Does that mean at the beginning of the pipeline? I guess, as in, because some people have asked they want to be able to save the the flattened image, the finished image, and like the raw as well, so they can have the option of like editing it later if they want. I kind of am against that version of it, just because I think it's about accepting it as what it is. So having the raw to edit it later kind of goes against the philosophy, I guess. If this is if Norman's talking about a raw at the beginning of the pipeline, kind of, I did try that. I think one of the things that is hard with it is the Pro Raw is quite like, is pretty good, as in it's well balanced photo that you can kind of just put into the pipeline straight away. The RAWs were just a bit more all over the place. So I'd have to kind of like, I guess I'd have to build a different pipeline for it. And to be honest, with the with the option of saying the dynamic range is 0, I think you get a lot of the benefits of a RAW without having to deal with some other kind of oddities. So yeah, probably not gonna be doing that, but you never say never, I guess.
I was talking to, like, through messaging, Christopher Cohen one time. He was the chap from Filmic who was on stage on the iPhone 11 Pro keynote. And when Filmic brought out First Light, their camera app, I asked him if there would be a chance to make a Pro RAW with, it's got some like film type things on it too, right? You can add a vignette and all that stuff. And I asked him, what would it be possible to make a Pro RAW file with that stuff baked in? And he kind of gave me one of these emojis or whatever they have, like emojis, thinking, and I guess he kind of wanted to look into it, but I just don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to create a Pro RAW file with anything but the Apple stuff built into it. Yeah,
but is that proprietary kind of software, or format even? I mean, it's kind of like a RAW, right? Is kind of intended to be edited. So I suppose you can't really bake anything into it.
Yeah, and their whole concept was right from the beginning. It gives you a head start on the edit, right?
Yeah.
And Shane Mostyn says he missed this. He came in late. That's okay. You're still a bloody legend. He says, is it simply a film emulator type of camera app? So I would say basically the answer would be yes. Would it not be, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people liken it to like having a Fuji camera in your pocket, I guess. In fact, I've had quite a few messages from people saying, "Thank you for making this. You've saved me a couple of £1,000,
exactly,
$1,000 or whatever."
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it is really nice. It is like it does the film emulation thing for sure. But like you can turn that off and you can just use the emulations with like the digi setting, so there's no grain, or you can have it on 100, which is like very fine grain. So it's quite versatile in that sense. I kind of resent the like film emulation kind of label, because it is, yes, it does that, but it is, I feel like it's not trying to just do the Instagram kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's not just trying to make things look filmic for nostalgia. It's trying to do a bit more than that.
Yeah. Well, is there anything about the app that you want to bring up, Alex, or Dwight? Do you have any questions for Alex before we move on to?
No, I'm just enjoying listening to Alex, and
yeah,
I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to get ahead of his plans and stuff like that. I'll leave it to Alex to update.
I'm happy to answer any
Well,
queries.
obviously, I'm interested in roadmap, but you got to keep that under your hat. I think a little bit, or whatever you're able to share.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk a bit about like future plans for the app, I think I've kind of, I guess, backed myself into a corner with it a little bit, as in, because it's simple. there's kind of not too much more I can add. Like, sure, there are things that people ask for, but they're all kind of small improvements. I think like what I'm thinking about is there are a few things, like I'd quite like to add a double exposure mode.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's a bit niche, but I think it'd be really nice, especially with all the grain. And it wouldn't, like, I'm hesitant to add anything that's too, changes the philosophy too much. Like, lots of people want to import photos, but I'm just never going to do that, because it's not about that. And people get quite annoyed, to be honest. I've had some quite aggressive messages from people. But hey, that's the internet for you. So yeah, I think I think double. Sorry, go ahead.
I think you could probably be pretty safe to add Dwight and maybe even myself to your list of beta testers.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually beta testing something right now, which is it's not even beta testing. I'm basically just seeing if is it a good idea or not. I'm trying to work that out. And it's a kind of custom preset mode. So what that is, and this is based off feedback from users, is the ability just to tweak the optionally be able to tweak each emulation a slight bit more. So things like dialing down the amount of the emulation, so you can have it a bit less intense. It's a little bit on the change in the tint or the temperature,
opacity maybe as well.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a few, like, and I'm hesitant to add it because it is about simplicity. However, I do read Reddit and I see people being like, mood's cool, but the effects are too strong for what I want. And one of my beta testers he uses portrait a lot, but he's like, I always have to add a bit of warmth in the Photos app afterwards, because he just likes a little bit more warmth. So I suppose I can see, for those people who want to go a level deeper, having a few more things to play around with.
Because that's personal taste when it comes to that, right?
So that's what I'm trying at the moment. And so far they've been loving it. It is an advanced thing. So, I don't want to like scare off, the people when they use it for the first time. But I think it does add a bit more flexibility. So that's kind of what's going on at the moment. I'm also looking at if I can do anything with, you can get basically like an HDR gain map out of the camera as well. So that is, a black and white image of the lightest and darkest areas. So it's not like, it's not just a black and white version of the photo, So it's kind of interesting. I was looking at that to potentially use to improve how the halation works, because that's like, you get that kind of red glow around like brightest parts of the image.
Sure.
And at the moment I'm just using the image itself, but you can get some kind of false positives because of the way the finished image is captured. Whereas with the dynamic range map gives you a lot more information. So that's kind of interesting. It's a subtle thing, so it's kind of, I'm weighing up, is it worth the effort? But it would be nice to kind of dial that in at some point.
Shane had another good question here. What would be the advantage of this versus an app? I guess it's an app called 1998, for example, where loads of camera apps now. Why would I buy this one versus something like 1998.
I've actually heard of 1998.
So this is basically like
I'm trying to
your selling pitch here.
I have I
Yeah.
have 1998, and I think I can partially answer that for Alex a little bit, just based on what he told us earlier, that he's gone through a lot of these apps, not necessarily 1998, and has found that a lot of these film emulations are gimmicky. So not specifically relative to 1998. I mean, he may like that one, but I think his niche is in between, to kind of be in the middle there, between the gimmick and the pro kind of apps that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I must be honest, I've not actually used this particular vintage camera app.
It has different cameras that you can use.
Yeah, so I can't speak for it, but I think, as I said earlier, like the attention to detail of the film grain and the emulations and the kind of simplicity of the user experience, I think, kind of set it apart. And the ability to, like if you want to go high resolution, no grain, and still have the film emulations, then that's also an option. So it's quite flexible in that regard.
And we'll finish off this segment here with Norman's comment about Mood's an interesting app compared to, or when you compare it to Leica Lux, where they're trying to create an app that simulates their lens types and colorations. Yeah,
I remember seeing that and feeling a bit worried, thinking. At the time, I mean, I think I used it when they first brought it out. It wasn't. I don't think it was just a great user experience. I don't know. It didn't gel with me for some reason. And that is, we all have our own preferences, right? And I suppose like someone might just like the Mood camera UX, the look and feel of how it works. And that might just be what sets it apart for someone. But it's obviously quite hard to distill that into a sales pitch because everyone has their own tastes. But, I recommend just trying it out. I mean, it's got a free trial, so see what you think of it. I mean, I don't know about the Leica Lux. I haven't tried it again, but I think
there's a free version to it, but it's quite limited to what you can do.
I think that like the trouble with like the bigger companies doing this kind of thing is they've got to be careful of not eating into their own like business, right? Fuji would make a great app potentially, but they don't. I'm sure they'd rather keep selling their proper cameras. So they're like many things. It's the small people who can disrupt a bit more because they've got less constraints.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit. In all honesty, I think we could have a 3-hour conversation about Mood camera. There's just so much to talk about, with the app, what the app could do, and the features and all that stuff. If you have the app, or if you're thinking of getting the app, don't forget there's a really good guide in there that it's in the settings, and it tells you all about the different things that the app can do. I'm going to be going back and forth to it quite often, I think, because it even describes what the film simulations could do, because you get a little idea when you select it on the screen. But if you want to take more time to read about it, then look in the guide, and it's a real helpful tool. So I think on that note, I think we'll jump into some recent photos. I'm going to take a second here to get this together. So normally, if it's just Dave, Dwight, and I, we do two photos each. But when we have a guest submit 2 photos, and then we'll do 1 each, just so that it doesn't take us forever to get through the show here. And actually, before we do that, Norman says, "I applaud Alex's effort to understand and give us options for processing in the iPhone." Yeah, that's definitely
appreciate it. Yeah.
So anything you want to say to that point about the processing part of it?
I mean, I guess I'm excited to see if if Apple like responds, obviously not to me, but like just to the general feeling and in the community of the over-processed look. It's they did add in the photographic stars in the last version,
which I think is fun. I think it's a great addition to their camera suite for sure. But again, it still has some of that processed look to it.
And one thing that like I don't, and this might be just a personal thing, but like the something I tried to do with Mood was like even though there are options, I tried to limit them to like maybe 5 or 6 or something. With their like they have their kind of XY pad with the tone and stuff. You kind of have like you have like an infinite kind of potential, well, not infinite, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of like notches on each axis. And I suppose like, I don't know, I find it a bit like, I don't like that. Something about just having a few options just makes it a lot easier to make a decision about, I don't know, I want max this and you know, medium on that. And it just having so much fine grained control kind of put me off. But yeah, you're right. It still has that processed look, and there's no kind of film grain. I can't really imagine them ever adding that. But
no, they've only got noise reduction.
I prefer to work with tone curves than the XY slider myself.
Yeah. So okay. All right. So we're going to go into our recent photos, and if you're watching the YouTube video, here they are. They'll be here. If you're listening on to the podcast afterwards, don't forget to check out your screen. It's an enhanced podcast where we display the images that we're talking about. And if you'd been listening this long, then you would have seen some of the ones from before. So they do work in CarPlay. Don't look at them while you're driving. But yeah, it's just, I put this podcast out this way because this is the best way to understand what we're talking about when we talk about an image. So I think what we'll do is we will start with you, Alex.
Yeah.
And we'll start with this one here. And from what I understand, this was from early beta days?
Yeah. So I think... you know, when you asked to send some photos over, it's kind of hard for me to choose because like there's been thousands of amazing photos, but this one in particular, this was from. I was going through the timeline actually of when I worked on. I made some notes, so I think I started in September 2023. That's when I started developing something, and then in December that same year I sent it to some friends, but it was I think February the 11th. So actually almost a year, February 11th, 24 is when I posted the first beta on Reddit. So yeah, then there was 3 months of kind of more development and polishing. So yeah, this was in that phase. And I think, this is from one of the testers called Brandon, and haven't heard from him for a while actually, but he took some really great photos, and this one really stood out to me. I think like this is with analog, I believe, and just the vibrancy of the greens and and just the like motion in it, with the two kids kind of running along, just gave it like quite a whimsical feel, but also quite like there was a sort of like a claustrophobicness to it somehow, just kind of narrow street. But then the like gorgeous sun coming in. It was quite a kind of contradictory in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think it really, it's just a great photo. And the mood just brings it alive with that vibrancy, and it's.
I like how the action was caught. You always like to try to get a leg up, right? So it looks like there's movement, and you got it on both sides, which was that's really cool.
Yeah. I can just imagine them running off down the street.
Yeah.
Tipping over all the motorbikes.
Yeah. Is that your kind of style?
Now I know why. Now I know why you say the only running you do is away from the police.
That's it. Into the fridge.
Yep. But yeah, no, I like this image. It just has an old school vibe to it, an old time vibe to it. And that's what Mood Camera does. It gives you these, the vibes of days gone by, and even there's really not much stylistically that would put this in the present, other than maybe the style of the bikes and that type of thing. But you're looking at this image. I mean, who's to say it wasn't taken 25 years ago?
Yeah, it looks like a photo you pull out of a shoebox and you scan, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it does. So yeah, and the colors and everything else. Like one thing I have to get away from, and this kind of harkens back to our last show where we talked about, broadening our horizons. One of the things I have to get away from is the realistic color of things. Like I try to make things look as realistic as I remember seeing them at the time. But one thing that Mood Camera will help me do is get away from that. Like I'll be able to accept, the more lush, vibrant greens on the trees, say, than what they were really like.
Yeah.
All that sort of thing. So it's going to be good for me. It's going to be healthy.
That's one thing. That no chimping feature. One thing it is good for is that itself. Because I found myself taking a photo and then looking at it and being like, don't know. And then getting home or looking at it the next day and seeing it again. And when you're not comparing it with the vista itself, the view itself, you're in a different kind of headspace. And a lot of the time I'm like, actually, that's a really nice photo. Like, and I think it's just taking you out of that moment and not expecting it to kind of represent what you imagined is quite interesting.
Yeah, Greg, and I think it goes back to what we talked about early. If we took this and brought it into Photoshop, the first thing I'd be thinking is, wow, there's a lot of yellow in those greens. I'm going to, mute some of those tones down, and, I'm going to lift the greens. I'm going to, and there's freedom in this app to not have to do that. And I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it raises a good point. A good question is like, what is photography? I suppose, like, is it recreating what your eye sees? Is it recreating what you remember? Is it creating a feeling? Is it, are we trying to make it as accurate as it was? Is it, I think it's obviously down to style, but for me, it's just about evoking a feeling.
Mm-hmm. And is that basically how you come up with the title, Mood?
Well, yeah. I mean, one thing was, a lot of other names are taken. But yeah, I think I liked. I think I liked the fact it was. They look moody. I mean, you can't deny that. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alex. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think you want something short because it's got to fit under the app icon, and I don't know. Yeah. It kind of just flowed off the tongue quite nicely, and the mood.camera domain was available, so
there you go.
No,
happy great. Days.
Yeah, because I feel a lot of pressure when I edit. In my mind, I'm thinking I've got to bring the scene back to how I remembered it, or it's just art. And I think this app invokes the feeling of art immediately, and I think that the different emulations that you have assist in that. So to me, this is photography. There's composition, but it's also art, which I think, in my opinion, ties directly to the different emulations and the settings. So I could be off, but to me, anything other than what it looks like if we were standing there is art. But that's kind of my interpretation.
Yeah, and everyone will have their own preferences. Yeah. I mean, I know some people use the app just with the stock Apple color profile, but without the with the sharpening and everything off, and that's just how they like to use it. And that's great. Like whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the whole like.
But when I deviate from trying to recreate the scene as I remember it, I have a tendency to come up with some pretty cool tones, and people like those too. So is that art, or is it maybe the sun's pointing a different way? I don't know, but yeah.
I think if you say it's art, it's art.
Yeah.
And that's the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. One thing I'm not, is a bit weird. This whole AI object removal, and I see people post a picture on Reddit, and someone's like, "Oh, this would be better if you'd remove the building or remove the power lines running across." And I don't know. To me, I just feel like it should. That adds interest. Like if you remove everything that makes it what it was, then kind of.
I agree. There's a lot of freedom in leaving that stuff too, right?
Yeah. Less decisions to make.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Auntie Maxine has downloaded it and she's going to try it out, so that's good.
Nice. Thank you.
So the next one we have. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Oh, it's mine. Okay. So this was at the local popular waterfall, and I love the X-Pan aspect ratio. I've shot more in that with Mood than I have any other one. I just really, really like it, and especially with a landscape, and it just happened to fit in this situation too. Like, sure, I could have got a lot more of the falls as it goes down into the river at the bottom of the frame, but I really wanted to show the trees and the ice formations on the rock face in behind. That's the Niagara Escarpment that runs right through the city here. So there's a lot of really cool photo opportunities with that alone. And when I tried a couple of different emulations, but Chrome gave me this nice blue cast, which gave me the real feeling of coldness, really the bitter cold. And it was cold that day. I'll bet you it was at least minus 10 Celsius. So
that is
it was
cold.
Pretty cold.
I wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know what to do.
No.
Alex, I have a question for you. Would Chrome, because we know that when you take a cold shot like this with an iPhone, there has a tendency to have a blue cast to it. Is Chrome doing that, or would you say it's the iPhone doing that?
Chrome is definitely got a lot of purple in it, so I think that's probably what you're seeing here.
Yeah, good.
Purple in the shadows for sure. So yeah.
And this is unedited. This is just as it was shot. The only thing I wish I could have omitted was the twigs in the bottom right hand corner, but they were there, and that's part of it.
To lean in close. Oh yeah. I thought it's like a crack in the rock.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I never thought of it that way.
It's not distracting, Greg, for me.
Okay, good.
It is now you've pointed it out. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. But you know what? I posted this on Facebook, and now I have a lady I'm kind of been talking back and forth with her. She wants a large print
Oh, nice.
of the shot. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a really interesting photo. I think it's one of those ones that you could, if you print it out big enough, you stare at it for an hour looking at all the different bits, because it's quite complex.
Yeah. Shows a lot of depth too.
That's nice. Yeah, X-Pan is popular. I don't know why. It's just feels good. It's quite satisfying. And it's just interesting compositionally. I think that was something I wanted to add in some different aspect ratios to just give a bit more creative options. And it's I'd never heard of it actually until my friend, like I said, a couple of friends tried it early on. And he said, could you add X-Pan? It's quite a fun aspect ratio. So I have to thank him for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it's there for sure. So,
Nice.
So next we have Dwight's, and you kind of alluded to this earlier a little bit.
Yeah, this is at the Mission. Not a spectacular composition or photo, in my opinion. But I did want to test the portrait mode on this thing, and I thought it did a nice job. And I was shooting in random here, and this was my happy accident. It landed on analog 400U. So that's the ultra processed, I think, right? Yeah. So I have a lot of processing in on this one.
That's the ultra is like the kind of contrast, I guess, of the tone of it.
Got it.
So it's not the processing.
Yeah, because you can go like really faded.
Yeah.
Or you can go ultra.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So it's quite lots of crushed like blacks and stuff.
Yeah, but the depth of field on this I thought was really nice. Obviously, my focal points in between the eyes there, but I think that rolls off nicely.
Yeah, it's an interesting composition actually. You say it's nothing special, but I think it works really well. And I like how the is that a railway bridge or something? The bridge.
No, that's a building, a perimeter of the mission.
Okay.
So on the other side of that is a street, and that's a hallway, and there's a bunch of doors and museums.
Right.
And stuff in there.
Yeah. It reminds me of the railway arches.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't have any structural stuff made with bricks here in Southern California. We're moving and shaking all the time. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like how it cuts from the very top left down.
Oh, thank you.
It kind of draws your eye to the from the horse's
brings you to the subject
face. Yeah. But then kind of there's a few actual different kind of angles going on. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But the colors look great as well.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I love the muted colors. I just love it. I love how just it's muted. It's not over processed, and it's exciting. So this is going to be in my top row of cameras for sure on my phone.
I think this is an interesting image too, because the focal point is right dead center of the frame, but my eyes keep going to the weeds or whatever that is behind it, down to it almost looks like a whatever that is in the lower right.
That's a bench, I think. I think.
Yeah, I thought it might have been a bench, but it looked like it was. I guess the horse statue is up off the ground then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
it's on a pedestal. Anyway. Yep.
Okay. That's why it kind of threw me for a loop here, but I go down to the bench and then I go up to the horse's feet, up to the horse again, and then peripherally I see the building with the archways in the background, even the little tree up in the background there, but then back to the horse's face again, and I just keep going around the photo. So, and the muted tones and colors and that don't make anything stand out too strongly visually. Like it's not like bang hitting you right in the face or anything. So it allows you to go around the image like that and just sit there and like you said earlier, just stare at it for quite some time. I think it's a very good happy accident.
It is happy. I'm not sure if this would print. I'm not sure if those highlights are blown out. I didn't check, but I would imagine I can control that with the settings a little more. But I like the way this turned out.
Mm. Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so now on to Alex's second one, and I thought this was really interesting. It has that that little glow, I guess, or whatever it was. You said you said sometimes happens in the bright spots.
The halation.
Yeah, the halation. Mm-hmm. It's just to me, it's just a really cool image.
Yeah, I don't know where it is actually, but it's kind of it definitely draws you right down to the kind of the beach, I guess, and then you put the mountains. And there's an interesting, I'm not sure why, but there's an interesting sort of semicircle at the top of the image that is in the sky. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if that's just how the clouds are, or whether Mood did something, or is it a weird lens flare? I have no idea, but it's super interesting. And I think just that
is weird.
I love the shadows of it. And just again, like the other image, we looked at the motion in the skateboarder, and yeah, just gorgeous colors. And I think like you probably won't be able to tell on the stream, but just the kind of the grain just makes the colors so nice, like the gradients, like the way they all kind of come together. Because I think one thing you get a bit of like, you can get a bit of banding and stuff. And the grain kind of basically eliminates that.
Yeah. And I like the halation in this. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, you can feel the warmth, right?
Yeah. That's like
I think it adds character to the image too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think this was in the beta test as well. But yeah, it's also just like a super interesting thing. Like if you look at all the different areas, all the different skate, I don't know, ramps, I guess, and just the way it's kind of like undulating, and it's kind of
makes me want to pull my old board out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the low sun just catches it just right. Yeah. It's a really nice picture.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. Andy Maxine says the shadow effect using this app is fantastic. The shading is awesome.
Great.
Yeah, it's soft. I love the soft edges, and yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that's achievable with, the different settings, whether it's the EV, the dynamic range setting, even, or the amount of contrast that you put into the image. Like there's so many different ways you can massage the settings to get just the perfect result. And I don't know what the beta tester used in this one for those types of particulars, but it's just really cool the way it turned out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you just have to experiment. It won't be for everyone. The kind, the look and the flow, like the fact there's no way to change anything after you've taken it is definitely not going to be something that people enjoy. But I would say, if you give it a chance and embrace it, I do think it just allows you to be a bit freer with taking photos. But there is a wall you have to kind of get through, I think, for some people.
Yeah, and I think Maxine has a good comment down there. It reminds me of the way a photo used to be, and I think that's kind of the point, right? Getting away from all the processing and
the control, the editing. I mean, not to say that we shouldn't edit, and that's not a great way to take photos, but
I was just given a Pentax Spotomatic Asahi, and I'm not going to know how it looks until I get the film developed, right? We can still see it here, within a few seconds if you want.
But I mean, also, I did a bit of film photography in my when I was at art college, but it's a shame it's so expensive as well, because I do like the look of it, and I like having a physical photo. I have actually printed some out from Mood, and they look great on 4x6.
Oh, good.
They look really nice.
Nice.
I was actually that was one idea I had in the early days, was that to integrate with some like printing API, and you could like print from the app and then deliver them. I thought it'd be kind of fun, because I think like having the physical photos just makes them so much more valuable. They have a finiteness to them, whereas digital is just like you've got so many on your Apple Photos or Google Photos or whatever, that it just gets lost in a sea of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe you can create a Kickstarter campaign where you can fund a project like a Mood photo printer.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I would say you can get I think
you can get it like an Instax or something.
Polaroid
like
make one, I think. But it's a fun idea for sure. But I think the price is inhibiting though. Even printing them with the service, it's like people aren't. You get used to like stuff being kind of free, going back to the old ways can be a challenge.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, Well, that's a look at our recent photos, and I know the ones that you had, Alex, were not necessarily recent. What we do as a rule is show pictures that we've taken since our last episode. But I mean, no, don't. There's no worries about that. You're excused. But I think it's just you sent me I think it was 10 pictures to pick from, and I picked some of the ones that I thought were really cool and interesting that I definitely wanted to hear more about. So, I think we've got ourselves a show. We thank you so much for coming on, and I'm so glad we did this. I think Mood's becoming a very popular app in the film sim world, and congratulations on your success with it.
Thank you.
And I just can't wait to see what comes out, in the future with the app. So, job well done.
Thank you.
And I hope more people watch this and jump aboard, because it's a fun ride.
Yeah. No, and if you want to see, I definitely recommend the Reddit community and the Instagram, just to see what people are doing with it. If you want to see recent photos,
and I've got those links are in the show notes, so people can just click on them and go right to them. So
there was a really neat photo today of somebody walking down the beach. That was cool.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful one.
Yeah, on Reddit, you guys should check that out. That was really nice.
I definitely will. I was too busy playing with the app to look at Reddit today. So.
You have to go down. You have to do the drop down on the hot photos, and that's the first one, I think. So.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's really nice.
All right. Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be that'll be the picks of the week on Monday for sure.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, thanks again.
Yeah.
Alex.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Really appreciate your time, and thank you, Dwight, for hanging around on a weekend. And it's definitely not our usual recording time, but so the audio version of this will be out probably sometime tomorrow. I'm not going to schedule. I'm just going to, as soon as I'm done with the edit, I'm going to put it out. Maxine, thank you for popping in. Glad to see you come aboard and check out the video. And thank you to all the listeners and anybody that supports the podcast. Thank you very much. And Alex, stick around. We got a little bit to talk about before you go. And I guess we'll see everybody on the next one.
Take care. And thanks again, Alex. Thanks, Greg.
Bye-bye.